Hello, guys. I'm glad that the message came about courage because it did took a lot of courage. So I'm also thinking that the calm is going to come along. But yeah, it is a whole different ball game when I know you guys are all used to seeing me here doing openings and vibrations, but when I have 3 hours to talk to you guys about reincarnation, no, I'm joking. Let's hope that I can do in about 45 minutes. But yes, we are going to talk about reincarnation today. And the geek on me is very happy. This is one of my favorite topics in Spiritism. So, reincarnation. Know, therefore, that the greater silence, from the greater silence I shall return. Forget not that I shall come back to you. A little while, a moment of rest upon the wind, and another woman shall bear me. This is Khalil Gibran on the opening of the book The Prophet, one of my favorite poets. So my first lecture had to have some poetry. And of course, I did find that my favorite one did also talk about reincarnation. So reincarnation, it is, to me, attractive topic. Now, for everybody out there, it's a very controversial topic. But even here in the Spirit Center, when you can come have lectures about any number of topics, I guarantee that at one point or another we're going to touch on reincarnation because it's natural. It's natural law, so it is part of our lives. So let's start with the basic. What is reincarnation? Reincarnation is the return of the spirit to a new physical body. The spiritual principle, the spirit itself, evolves from a primitive atom to an angel, a pure spirit. It is no question about we do need reincarnation if we are going to evolve. If we do start as a primitive atom, how are we going to do in one, maybe seconds of lifetime, become a pure spirit? So it is a necessity. It is also a spiritual evolution, an admirable law that harmonizes the universe and gives all things their purpose. All things linked together in nature. I specifically put this picture here. Hope it's not too light today. There you go. So this is the burial site for Kardec in Paris. It is a Druid construction. One of his lifetimes was a Druid, which is a priest, a high priest of the Celtic culture. So when they made this dolmen for him, they picked one phrase. So let's imagine the person that put the whole spiritist codification together, what would be the one phrase to symbolize him? And here's in French, so the translation will be, to be born, to die, to reborn yet again, and constantly progress. That is the law. I think that's enough, right? Oops. So we are in a spirit center. In Spiritism, we always talk about three aspects. We talk about the philosophical side of everything. We talk about the scientific aspect and the religious. So we're going to do the same thing with reincarnation. So some of the philosophical aspects of reincarnation is one of the spiritist principles. At one point, we can talk about all of them. It is the consequence of two natural laws, the law of divine justice, which is cause and effect, and the law of progress. It is always progressive. It's never regressive. We are created simple and lacking knowledge. We do need many lives to progress from our atom, from the beginning of our spirit until we become pure. Kardec liked to use more, instead of reincarnation or many lives, he likes to use the plurality of existence. And it defined as the only explanation that corresponds to the idea that we form of God's justice towards us, because it provides us with the means to rescue our errors through new trials. So if that does not explain God's justice, I need a new explanation, because this is new trials. You can try it again. You will evolve. One thing that, when I was putting this together, the second that I read here, God's justice, the first thing that came to mind to me was growing up, going to school. I did attend Catholic private school pretty much my whole life, so do not hold that against me. But I do remember having some of my friends coming to school, driven to school in the latest models of cars, wearing the nice sneakers and brand clothing, having a good life. At the same time, I had some other friends that the only reason that they were at school because their mom was the janitor. So they got a scholarship, they could come to a nice school. Those kids would never show up on a rainy day. And then one day I discovered that the whole reason, it's because the place they live had no pavement, no asphalt on the roads. So it would get so muddy, so hard, that they could literally not walk to the streets to come to school. So that was the day that I came to the nuns on my religious class and asked, how is that just? Where is God being just, showing his justice here, when this friend has everything and this one cannot even come to school? At that point in my life, I thought that those kids had nothing. It was not until many years later, knowing Spiritism and learning about reincarnation, that it dawned to me, it does make sense. I didn't know then, but now I can look and say it makes absolutely perfect sense, because we are always going through new trials to redeem the errors that we did before. But enough about philosophy. Let's talk about scientific aspects. The little geek on me loves this topic too. The most examples used to prove reincarnation are extracerebral memory experiences. One of the most common examples of this will be a déjà vu. Have you ever walked into a room, you look at a person, and you're like, ha, there you are. I know you. I know you. I don't know from when or from where, but I know you. Or you go to a place, you're traveling, and you walk into a building, and you have that sense that you've been there before. So those are memories that it's not stored in our physical brain, because we know we have not been exposed to that in this lifetime. So where is that coming from? Also, children, spontaneous memories of other lives. A lot of kids do have the capability of having those spontaneous memories, especially between the ages of 3 and 7. When they are more tuned with the spiritual worlds, it comes easier to them. Later in life, most of them ended up forgetting those. Also, memories before birth. Little kids telling their parents, oh, before you were my mom, I used to do this, and that, or I used to live in that place. Also, regressive hypnosis, birthmarks. There are many, many aspects of research, and also many scientists that are doing those research. Those are well-renowned, widely known scientists. But I picked the three that I am most familiar with. This first guy here, it's Ian Stevenson. Most of his research were done with kids in India. And the way he did his research was receiving a report of a child having those memories, and he'll go and interview the child. And that was very detailed, very comprehensive interview. Then he'll get his report and go search to see if he could prove, if he could find anything that was true. Most of the cases he was able to prove, to the point that he will take some of the kids back to the city that they'll say they'll come from. And he'll take the kids to a house, and the child will be like, oh, yes, I remember. When I was living here, that corner used to have my bed right there, and that guy used to be my son, and this is how we had our daily life schedule. So all of those details were so almost impossible for that kid from hundreds or thousands of miles away to know, that they found a way that they found that it is the only explanation for that, it is reincarnation. And when I say some studies, we're talking about over 3,000 reported cases. So imagine those cases that the past life was a little bit longer back, or more years back, that they could not go and search for the details. So no question for him that past lives was exactly what he was dealing with. So he's a Canadian psychiatrist. I don't know if I say that. Now this one here, he's an American psychiatrist, Brian Weiss. You may recognize his name from the bestseller, Many Lives, Many Masters. He did go into the research of reincarnation when he was doing regression therapy with one of his patients for over a year. Nothing was helping this person. So during the regression, he had tried, go early on your adult life, go to your teenager years, go back to your childhood, and nothing, no progress at all. Until one day he told that patient to go back to the source of your problems. And right away she went back to another life. So for him it was quite a shock, because here we're talking about a psychiatrist, a university professor, very scientific mind. He knew there was something different in there. And he knew that the second he brought that up to his peers, it was pretty much going to be career suicide. But he tried the same method with other patients that were not progressing as he was hoping, and he started to see a pattern that many of them were able to go back to past life memories and do have a come true with the therapy. So he decided that this is real, this is big enough that I'm gonna talk about it, and he wrote this first book, became a bestseller, and he wrote several books after that. Now, this guy here, out of the whole group, he's the only one that is a spiritist. And he's quite dear to me, because the last years of his life, he lived pretty close to my city in Brazil, and he was friends of some of my family. His name is Hernani Guimarães Andrade. He's an engineer, he was a parapsychologist, and above all, he was a researcher. In Spiritism alone, he did so many research in so many topics. He talked about perispirit, and it was super deep. If you get his books, it's literally really hard to understand, because it's so super scientific. He talked about mediumship, he talked about transcommunication. He did a lot of research. But one thing he did a lot was on reincarnation. And it was pretty similar to Ian Stevenson's method, that he would get reports, he would get interviews, and go and search and see if you could match all those details, but not with children. So he will also use adult subjects that whenever he would get the reports, he would pretty much do the same type of research. And those adults that still kept their memory, sometimes they had much details and they were able to talk to him back and forth and prove many cases. We do have one of his case that he wrote a book about. We have up front, I left on the desk if you guys want to take a look later on. Now, what are we missing? The religious aspect, right? All right. Belief in reincarnation originated in the early days of humanity and primitive cultures. So reincarnation is not an invention of Spiritism or an idea that Kardec had one day during breakfast. This is natural law. This is part of our life. So as long as there are humans, there is a reincarnation. It is present in the religions of ancient Egypt. Almost all their philosophy and science is based on reincarnation. Hinduism, the sacred book of Bhagavad Gita says, as we put aside the used clothing and we put on new, so the spirit changes new clothing of flesh and put on a new one. The end of birth is death, and the end of death is birth. Such is the law. So they also consider a life, spiritual law. Buddhism says suffering comes from the desire of the human being, which leads to successive births. Along with lust, desire finds satisfaction everywhere. The desire of passions and powers are the source of suffering. Then we have ancient Greece, Socrates and Plato, loaded with reincarnation insights. Taoism, the Jewish Kabbalah, Rosicrucian, spiritualism. Most spiritualist religions do have some kind of mention on reincarnation. The Druids, other spiritual religions. Now the Druids, I don't even consider that they believe in reincarnation. They knew reincarnation without a doubt, to the point that if you were a Druid, you could come to the bank and take a loan and then pay the next life. So that's a little more than belief. That's knowing that reincarnation is possible. Reincarnation was part of Christianity. Now we're going to talk about later on why I put was here. So let's create some suspense. Jesus, above all, taught us about reincarnation with great fervor. No one can see the kingdom of God unless he's born again. All right, so now we cover all three aspects. Let's talk a little bit about law of cause and effect, or karma. Who has a very associated idea of reincarnation with karma? Great. Now I know you're all spiritists. So law of cause and effect. It's a law that regulates trials, redemptions, and tasks of each incarnation. It governs all of our actions. It does bring us back to harmony. Newton's third law talks about our physical world. It says for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Also on the spiritual side, it's the same thing. For every action there is a reaction. I wouldn't say opposite, because if you're giving love, you're not going to get lack of love back. So it's a little different on the spiritual side. But the word karma, it is always associated with reincarnation. It comes from the Sanskrit word, which is the Hindu ancient alphabet or culture. And it means action. It does not mean punishment. So this is the way we misuse the word. Whenever we say, this is your karma, we're saying you're being punished because you've done something bad. So this is a very misuse. To the point that Kardec liked to use cause and effect exactly because of that. And he explains that charitable acts make amends for criminal actions from the past. We also see that law present on the Lord's Prayer. So Jesus brought us that in the Lord's Prayer, so we know how important it is. Forgive us for our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. If we're causing something, we are going to deal with the effect. Now I'm going to read something for you guys that I think sum it up pretty much everything here. Repetitive abuse of a muscle generates an injury in the body, and to restore it, you will need a short rest. The same happens with the spirit. Every misuse of a talent will create a deficiency and will require a reincarnation with limitations to harmonize with the law. Sums up everything, right? All right, but what I really want to bring to this talk are some of the most asked questions about reincarnation. So hopefully, if you do have questions about reincarnation, hopefully I'll be covering here. If not, let me know, and we can always do another talk about other questions. So first one, why do we reincarnate? Tell me why. In one lifetime, we simply cannot achieve perfection. Therefore, we need the trial of a new existence. So I'm going to pick a little bit on our friend Dilma here. Say hi, everybody, so they know who you are. So if we look at Dilma right now and consider only this existence right now, I know a little bit of her, so I can tell you that she did perfected the art of baking cookies for us. So at that point, she's done. Now, I know she is a woman, she's a daughter, she is Brazilian, she's here with us, so that means she's, at one point in her life, she immigrated too, so she has that experience. She's a wife. Besides being wonderful, is that enough to make her a perfect spirit? Even though we think she's perfect, but he thinks so, exactly. Now, if we take Will, we know that he has experience of being a man, being in the military service, being an American. So he has all those experiences in this lifetime. But I know that right now he doesn't know how to be a wife. And I don't think he can bake those cookies. Exactly. So we do need many trials, many existences, so we can experience all aspects of our lives. So we will be a daughter, we will be a son, we will be a mother, a father. We have to go through all that so one day we can achieve perfection in every aspect. All right? All right, number 2. Where can I find reincarnation in the Bible? The 2 most known examples are Jesus and Nicodemus. So Jesus tells him, Truly I say to you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless he's born again. That's quite simple. There's no way around. We know exactly what he's talking here. The other one is Jesus and John the Baptist. He's actually talking to the apostles when they're asking about Elijah and talking about John the Baptist. And he says, Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him. So then the apostles realize he's talking about John the Baptist. Now remember on the beginning when we were talking about the religious aspects that I say reincarnation was part of Christianity? Okay, let's see why, what happened, why it's not anymore as clear as used to be. So I'll invite you all to take a little time travel with me. So let's go back to the year 550. Let's go to the city of Istanbul in Turkey. But now 550 is actually called Constantinople. This is the new Rome. This is the place you want to be. Rome is already old news. So we all want to be in Constantinople. We are on the highlights of the Byzantine Empire. So the emperor Justinian calls all the great leaders of the church, invited everybody in to have a council to decide where are we gonna take the church in the empire. What are the rules that we're gonna set for everybody? So for about 3 years they talked and they confabulated and they got the direction where they want to go. So in 553, we had the Second Council of Constantinople. He did order Pope Virgil to pass a law. And that law says, if anyone says or thinks that the soul of pre-existing individuals who previously have been spirits and virtues and who were sent back in bodies as punishment, they shall be declared anathema, which means we are excommunicating you. You are old news, you are out of here, you are cursed. So if the Pope is saying all that, that means this all is true at that point. He recognized that as a fact, but they're changing their minds. Now, why would the emperor order the Pope to do that? Who will have power over the emperor? Alex knows that. Exactly. The wife had the power. So comes to the scene Theodora, his wife. She was not so happy with all the reincarnation talk on the Bible. And the reason was because she was not born out of royalty. She was actually a dancer, an actress, and many, many other talents. She was a prostitute also. So when she became the empress, she invited more than 500 of her old colleagues to live in a monastery. And then she tossed the keys away, and you got to stay here forever. When that happened, a lot of those colleagues committed suicide. And that was weighing heavy on her mind. She wasn't happy because the Bible is saying that she will have to respond for that. Also, she was a very proponent of slavery. So she was terrified that if she does come back in another life, she may be a slave. So what can she do about that? Let's cancel reincarnation. Let's tell the Pope that that's it, doesn't exist anymore. So of course the husband listened to her, ordered the Pope, and they got rid of most insights of reincarnation in the Bible. So it was easier than change her own self, right? I wonder, I wish we could have some books or somebody would talk about how many lives she was a slave after that. All right, number 3. Is there a period between incarnations? Yes, this period is called errant state. An errant spirit are those who are waiting for a new existence to improve themselves. They are of various degrees, and their waiting period may vary from days to centuries, usually occurring after relatively prolonged periods of time. Now, what will make the difference between this period here could be any number of factors. Could be the evolution of the spirits, could be the planning of reincarnation, could be how aware they are of their errant state. But there's definitely a period between. Number 4. Can we come back as an animal? Anybody want to guess? No. There will be an evolutionary regression. We talked before, it's always progressive. And the spirit does not regress. But the spiritual principle that is in the animal, when completely individualized, may one day reincarnate in the human species. So, doesn't matter how bad you think you are, you're not going to come back as a goat or a fly or a roach. Doesn't matter what your spouse is saying when you're having a fight. And talking about spouse, well, we'll talk about that later. Number 5. Can we reincarnate in a different gender? We talk about God being justice, so yes. Spirits reincarnate as man and woman, since spirit has no specific gender. As we progress in all manners, each gender provides the spirit with specific trials and duties, thereby expanding its experience. As we're talking about human will here, we do need balance. We have completely different experiences as a man or as a woman, so we have to try all of those. Number 6, do we reincarnate in the same family? Now, depending on your family, I may have good news or bad news. Spirits reincarnate as a family to contribute to each other's progress. Many spirits gather due to affinities and reincarnate together. Also, enemies from the past may reincarnate in the same family to learn to love and forgive one another. Now, whenever we talk about reincarnation in families, I'm pretty sure everybody has the black sheep on their minds. Every family has the black sheep, right? So our physical family is not always our spiritual family. Sometimes we reincarnate in different families or different groups with other affinities and tastes, so that we may learn from their values or teach them ours. So there's always a saint in the family, there's always a black sheep, and that's how we evolve. We take a little bit from where we can learn, and we give a little bit where we have learned already. Now, number 7, do soulmates exist? Oh, I see heads saying no, I see heads saying yes, I see heads saying I'm not going to look at my wife right now. Let's see. What exists are beings that met in other lives and plan to find each other again. Due to the pull to seek each other in the crowd, they can feel an attraction and approach each other by chance. That's by chance because they plan to find each other. Now, out there, mainstream information, a lot of people believe that soulmates are a division of one spirit. So me and my soulmate, we were once one single spirit that got divided. That's why we love each other so much, we have to be together. We learned that no, all spirits are created simple, all spirits are created the same. It's not like God created one spirit and say, okay, go and divide yourself later on. So the answer will be yes, if we do have that vision that soulmates are beings that are meeting, that had prior existence together, and they choose to be here to see each other again. Does it make sense? All right. Number 8. How are you on time? Oh, okay. We'll be good.
2 more hours.
Yeah. I can talk for 2 hours. I don't know if they can listen for 2 hours. Why some do reincarnate having disabilities, while others having special skills and talents? We just talked about God's justice, right? So why does that happen? Disabilities may be the indication of abuses perpetrated in previous lives that now requires atonement. In any case, this will only be a temporary limitation. All those disabilities are in our physical bodies. So either our brain, our mind, our body itself. Once that goes away, disabilities go away, our spirit will not carry that. Also, memories, skills, and experiences of other lives are stored in the perispirit's brain due to the continuous practice of a certain ability. So we do carry whatever we learn with us. Last month I started to take music lessons. I can tell you for sure, this is the first time in all my lives that I've done that, because it's painful. But I'm hoping that my next life, if I decided to go to this pain again, it'll be a little easier. Our current activities are not always related to the past. We may have same kind of professions, but it's not always related. If I do want to evolve, I cannot be a farmer every single existence. I need to learn how to be a lawyer, a doctor, a school nurse. We have to have other professions in order to experience everything. Number 9, can we remember other lives? Many people can remember other lives spontaneously, in dreams, in meditation, mediumship trance, regressive therapies, techniques. But for most people, there's a veil that prevents the recollection. Because, why would that happen? It will hinder their progress. It is a type of protection that prevents us from recognizing enemies of the past, even within our family. And here I want to make a very serious alert for you guys. I've seen many times advertising saying, come to our New Age bookstore. This weekend we'll have a regression workshop. Sounds interesting, sounds appealing. Oh, I want to know who I was. But those kind of settings, let's pretend you go there and you find that your child that you love, your newborn, was somebody that caused you great pain. Are you going to look at that child with the same love that you have right now? Are you going to put the same love on raising that child? It's going to be tough. So when we talk about those psychiatrists, psychologists, researchers doing regression therapy, those are professionals. They know how to help the patient digest the information that they are uncovering. So it's a whole different scenario. There's a therapy because there was a need for, there was a situation that could not be resolved any other way. So we take that kind of therapy and they work with that. Not just Saturday afternoon workshop and now what are you going to do with what you learn. So remember when you see those alerts and walk away. And number 10, you guys are surviving. How can we be responsible for the actions and repair mistakes that we do not even remember? We have no recollection, but we have a slight intuition. Our tendencies are a reminder of what we did in the past. And our conscience warns us not to commit the same errors of the past. If you really want to know what you did in the past life, I can tell you a very easy way to do that. You go home, you put your honest hat and look in the mirror. Whatever you're seeing yourself right now, it is the sum of all your past lives. So that's easy to have an idea. What have you done? Who have you been by who you are right now? And this is the best version of you right now. We do not always have to suffer. Now, this is my favorite. Those two phrases are what you should take home. This is what got me excited for this whole talk. We do not always have to suffer from what we did in the past. Through service and assistance to others, we can reduce or even eliminate our past debts. So there are two paths. You're going to suffer, go through trials, come back and try to redeem yourself, or you work, you pay forward, you put service and assistance to others. There's no better and easier way to get through your errors. And Jesus teaches that love covers a multitude of sins. That is forgiven. That is, I don't even know if we deserve that, but I hope that this is part of God's justice. All right, you all survived 10 questions. So where all this information came from? Not from me, I can tell you for sure. I use this book here, Reincarnation 101, by Luis Hu Rivas. We do have this book up front if you want to take a look. Very graphically appealing, very nice way that he puts all this information together. But I know for a fact that he did got all this information not from himself. He got from the Spirit's book, especially on part 2, chapters 4 and 6. And here we are lucky enough that the edition that we have of the Spirit's book up front, which I left on the table, you can take a look before you go home, that version has the questions that Kardec asked the spirits, and it has the answers, and sometimes Kardec makes his own comments, and they put that in italics, so we know the difference between the spirit's answer and his comments. And I love that because we see different approaches to, or an explanation to the answer. And one of his comments on chapter 4 is, reincarnation, which asserts that people have many successive lives, is the only theory that satisfies the idea that we form of God's justice with regards to those who are placed in morally inferior conditions. It is the only one that can explain the future and give us hope, because it offers us a way to make amends for our errors through new trials. This concept is indicated by reason and taught by the spirits. Always in Spiritism, we're going to look for reason. Does that make sense? And reincarnation does make sense. So if you're going to remember a few little points here when you go home, this is what I want you to remember. In each incarnation, we learn in the different areas of knowledge, but mostly we must learn to love ourselves, others, and God. Every action we take, for good or evil, generates consequences. Reincarnation works as a correction for the actions of the spirit. Each reincarnation, we are enabling new levels of development for ourselves until we become pure spirits. But most of all, I want you to think about, yeah, it was cool. We learned about reincarnation today. We talked about different aspects and some questions. That was all cool, but can I use that in my daily life? What can I do when I go home and I see my neighbor doing something I don't like tomorrow? So what is the practical point of all this? First of all, reincarnation is not a punishment. It's evolution. We're not here to suffer. We're not here to pay our past mistakes. We are here to learn. Second of all, give people a break. When you see somebody doing something that you don't like, know that that version of the person, it is the best that they ever had. So imagine how tough they had before, that the best is what you're seeing right there. So instead of being angry and fighting back, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what can I do to this person? How can I be of service to that person so he'll have a better life from now on? And not only to that person that annoys us. Let's do the same to ourselves. Let's look at ourselves and say, you know what? This is the best version of me. That means I did a lot of mistakes in the past. And I'm gonna fix them, but give yourself a break. This is the best. That means tomorrow you're gonna be even better. So let's make good decisions. Let's be better tomorrow. And thank you. Just pass a little bit of time